Mr.
Bond.
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 Bond. James Bond.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Bondcast, or should I say, the ultimate Bondcast. You're here today with Mike.
And Chris. Hi, Mike. Sorry, I nearly missed my cue then.
We have no
I've never done this
time
before.
round.
How are you, Mike? You all right?
I'm really good, mate, and it's great to see you. It's great to see all these people joining us today for another show. And God, we've got a good one coming today, haven't we? Do you know, Chris, what was the third Bond movie in the running? Where were we? What was our countdown?
Where was the what's the third Bond movie?
Yes, it was.
I believe it's a little-known movie known as Goldfinger.
Was it that unheard movie that nobody really watched very much?
Yeah,
No,
I think so.
it was a movie that made the first Oscar for James Bond.
It was. It was the movie that even today is probably the first film that people think of when they think of a Bond movie.
Oh God, yeah. So this is why we can continue our countdown. We've done Doctor No, we've done From Russia with Love, and we're now on to legendary Goldfinger.
Has it still got Sean Connery in it?
Well, Sean Connery made twice the salary he did for both the combined movies.
That's incredible.
Previously for this movie.
Totally deserved as well.
Absolutely, this is pinnacle. But before we jump in, guys, if you've only just joined us, if you've never watched the Ultimate Bondcast, shame on you. First of all, though, make sure you do subscribe to us.
Thanks for being here.
If you do subscribe to us and want to get any more abuse and remember what we're all about, just check us out.
Join the Ultimate Bondcast now. Monthly Bond theme updates. Movie reviews. James Bond gaming. News and updates. And so much more. Hit subscribe now and join in the show.
Oh yes, so much more to come, guys. But before we do our movie review, Chris, we need to jump into legendary Bond news. And there actually has been some stuff going on this last week, Chris.
Quite a bit.
So let me just adjust the music because right now, there we go, a bit better. So on to Bond news, sir. Right, this is about gaming today, believe it or not, mate. Gaming news. We have had an update from IO Interactive today. This week actually, and they've stated that the fabled game they are making, Project 007. Okay, now if you guys don't know about this game is in production for the guys that made Hitman. So in my eyes, the studio, the absolute best studio that can make a Bond game, and they have decided to make this an Origin game, Chris. So we're not going to Casino Royale, though. We're not going to Young Bond. We are going to it's like a standard Origin story. So you can make Bond the way you want him to look, for one. And you will be able to play your own Origin story that is not a on-screen or a literary version of the Origin story. You can make your own Origin story of how he becomes 007.
That's interesting, isn't it? Sorry, I'm a bit of a loss for words because, for me, I don't know. Bond's got quite a clear origin to a certain extent for me, and I don't need that to be reinvented. I want a bit of a cookie cutter moment in Bond's life. This is an adventure, and I am Bond for that adventure. I don't need to create Bond in my own image. How do you feel about it?
I like the way you can design the character and change him and make him a bit of a customization. So you could try and, if you wanted to, tailor him towards one of the actors that you quite prefer to play as.
Yeah.
So that's quite good. But I agree. I don't necessarily think an origin story is the way it has to be done. I think we've discussed it in our podcast before that we kind of didn't want another reboot in at least another 10 years or so. You know, we wanted just some classic Bond, some defined features. We don't want him to have to become the character.
I guess you would think that the IO Studios would be in contact with Amazon, and maybe that means that that's not the direction that Amazon are going in for the movies, because you would think that if IO Studios go to them and say we're going to do an origin story, Amazon would go, hang on a minute, that's our plan. Yeah,
it is.
We're not doing two, so maybe that means that Amazon aren't doing an origin, which is great news.
Absolutely. But what's also quite promising about this update as well is, so when this came out we had like I don't know if you've ever seen the teaser to it. There was just a bit of a rolling. You're inside the gun barrel, and it's got like introduction to it. It was all just CGI, and then there's a brief gun barrel of a Bond silhouette. So not really a lot to go at, apart from to whet the fans' appetite. However, they are saying now that we should start to see some teasers coming in winter this year. I mean, what that means, whether we get, I don't think it means a Christmas release or anything of that nature. But
I wouldn't imagine it'd be a 2025 release at all, would you?
No. Maybe a summer 2026, possibly. But
I mean, GTA 6 has just been pushed back, hasn't it? So I bet they wouldn't want to clash with that either.
Oh, who would want to be the studio that goes against Rockstar on release day? I mean, I know it's Hitman, but I think one thing they're good about IO Interactive, I think they're very smart people. They're a smart studio. And they'll plan it accordingly. So
I'm sure.
Absolutely psyched for that game. Can't wait for it to come out. But regrettably, Chris, that is the only Bond news in
that's
this
really good to hear.
From there
Love
for
it.
you.
Excellent. I think we need to get stuck into the movie, don't we?
Absolutely, mate. That brings us to why we're here, sir. That brings us to the absolute reason. So, Goldfinger, if you guys aren't aware, and I'm sure you are, is probably in people's top 10 when you look at a Bond film. It's a definitive staple movie. I've been so excited to get to this movie since we started our reviews. Let me just ask you, Chris, first of all. So, you've obviously, one thing I've tried to do when I watched the movie last night to get my refresher in numbers.
Yeah.
Got my little 4K disc out, had a look at it, and do you know what? I love watching the evolution of Connery in this movie. That's first things first. Something I really noticed watching it is he's so calm in this movie, so au fait with being the character.
I know, I completely agree with you. I think peak Connery in this movie. I feel that he's settled into his role. He probably feels a little bit more comfortable with how to play Bond. He's a slightly softer character than he was in Doctor No, and it gets incrementally softer and more palatable for a more family audience, I guess, as the films go on.
Absolutely.
But I think that he seems to relish playing the role in this movie especially.
Yeah, I think this also, you look at this film, it's got a lot of so we discussed in our last movie review that the formula sort of started in From Russia with Love, and that trend just goes on an upward heave in this movie. So we have a really good pre-title sequence. We have the first Bond song, and we obviously have proper, decent car chases. We have definitive villains. We have definitive henchmen. Honest to God, I cannot tell you how much of a ride I enjoyed watching this movie last night.
I completely agree with you. So this movie has, if you ask a casual Bond fan, like, name a Bond villain, name a Bond girl, name a Bond song, name a Bond car, 99 times out of 100, the answers they're going to give you come from Goldfinger, because it's that iconic. Name a henchman that came from a Bond movie, and most are going to say Odd Job, if not Jaws. So it's crazy how much the formula settled in this movie and peaked in this movie. I was thinking while I was watching this, that Goldfinger for me, I treated it kind of like it's your favorite band's greatest hit. A little bit, it might be something that you try and avoid listening to because it's so overplayed. You hear it on the radio all the time, and maybe it's not the cool song to like because it's something that everybody loves. But I'm going somewhere with this. But basically, what I mean,
mate, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued where this is going to end.
It's one of those where maybe you don't think it's the cool film to like, but having rewatched this, oh my god, it's such a good movie. It really is. I didn't want to love it as much as I do because everyone loves Goldfinger, or because it's just it's such a formulaic answer to say, oh, Goldfinger's one of my favorite Bond movies. But it was just even better than the last time I'd seen it.
I think I get where the tone that you're going with that on there. So Goldfinger for me, right? So if we dissect it bit by bit, and what we'll do is we'll understand it a bit further. So let's dig into. We've got the pre-title sequence first of all. Now this is the second pre-title sequence, even though there's been 3 movies. And one thing I noticed, Chris, I'm not sure if the eagle-eyed viewers picked up on this. Now, you know how we have the typical, so Bond walks across the screen, turns, shoots, and then the barrel sways down, right?
Yeah.
Now, it was actually smoother in From Russia with Love, believe it or not. And what I mean by that is, when it sort of zooms into a smaller dot, like there, and then it opens up to an open shot. I noticed in Goldfinger, it just went boom, 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 and then went black.
I'm sure it does that in Doctor No, doesn't it? It feel like it's kind of just jagged and then it just stops? But probably just trying to feel what's the right way of doing it.
How did they get it so good in the second movie and not quite so good, even though it's the same title sequence in the third movie? That's what I was trying to get my head around. And I just noticed, I thought, that's a bit weird. And I think I wouldn't have noticed it if we hadn't started doing our watch over reviews and stuff like that, really.
Yeah.
It was a really distinctive moment. So, but that's a technicality. It's nothing to shine some light on. It's more an interesting point of notice.
No, I agree.
Opening title sequence, so where we've got Bond doing an infiltration to a base of some description. He's obviously in pre-mission, isn't he? He's doing something that we don't really know about already.
He is. Go on, sorry.
It was the stealth moment I liked, how he was, having the duck on his head. He just comes with it. It's like, what?
It's a classic. I mean, the pre-title sequence, all I ever used to remember is that white tux jacket with the carnation, and it's such a again iconic. I'm going to say that word a lot in this review, but that is such a classic Bond look that I remember. Like, because I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, so Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, they ape that look. That Harrison Ford comes out in exactly the same jacket because it's kind of his James Bond moment in that film, and it just sticks in my head as like the coolest look to have. I just can't get over how much I love him in that white tux jacket.
We actually did on our Facebook post the other week. I don't know if you guys saw it, but we did a side-by-side comparison of Connery wearing the white labelled tuxedo, and then Daniel Craig wearing pretty much the same one in Spectre.
Yes.
And it was who wore it best. And I think everybody had literally said, you know what, we love Daniel Craig, but no one wears that suit like Connery.
No.
And it was quite, but I agree. This was sort of it's a bit of a shame because we never saw him in it again in his movies. It's always the normal black tux with no like red carnation on the side pocket and everything. Bit of a tragedy, if I'm being honest with you, because I think it looks awesome.
It is.
That leads us to taking out guards, fighting guys, and throwing them into bathtubs.
Meanwhile, the bathtub where he just proper glows orange as the guy fries. Excellent. Love that bit.
Mate, if we the only thing that movie was missing at the beginning was when the fan goes in the bath and it electrocutes him. I was expecting to see actual like blue lightning bolts coming out the bath.
Yes, it was all it was missing.
But you know that was, it wasn't some big, you know, explosion. Well, there was explosion, but it wasn't like a big like GoldenEye where he flies away from a base exploding. It wasn't high octane. But you know what? The tone to that was brilliant. I think it really set the movie up, and it puts it into a good pace as well, because we haven't got any leftover threads from that pre-title sequence.
No.
It's just, this happened, and now we're going to start a new mission.
Yeah, it's very much the template moving forward of, but this is generally a different adventure than the one that you're going to see. This is not this pre-title sequence is not setting up the movie. This is kind of, you're joining the last 10 minutes of a movie that you never see.
Yes.
And you know, and now you're starting on the adventure for a new one, which is kind of the way that they do it moving forward, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that sets it look lovely. I mean, so let's talk about. We've talked about Connery in some length. What I would like to look at is, let's go into things like the Bond girls, the Bond villains, that sort of thing. So these are, you know, very distinctive characters. For one, we've got Oddjob, Goldfinger himself.
You're talking? Are these the Bond girls?
Yeah, they're all in laid up bikinis, mate. You know, odd job with his mankini on. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Horrific sights. And of course, the wonderful, amazing Honor Blackman is possible.
Honor Blackman, yeah.
You know, so let's go to the villains part first, because obviously we've mentioned them already. So, give me a bit of a run through with Oddjob for you.
So Oddjob for me, he's the first real henchman that I think of. Now we had I'm forgetting Robert Shaw's character's name. Was it Grant in in From Russia with Love? And he's kind of a henchman, but he's also kind of the primary antagonist for a lot of the movie. But this guy is very much the quintessential henchman, silent, you know, just the muscle. You know, who he is the hand of the main villain that carries out the, you know, the tasks that he needs him to do. And Oddjob is a incredibly likable character in some respects. He, you know exactly what you get with him, and he's got such a cool identified weapon in the sort of steel-brimmed hat that he has. You know, he obviously is stronger than Bond, as we're seeing on screen right now. You know, he can take a punch. I just think Oddjob's a great cartoon character come to life.
I think it was nice to see Connery's Bond, who is essentially hard as nails, let's be honest. And it's good to see him outmatched. You know, that's what was really appealing about Oddjob.
Oh, definitely.
You know, I think the guy that played him, I forgot the name. It was Harold Sakata. Sorry, I don't remember that one. I'm just reading that name there. What was also really creepy about Oddjob, you're right, he was likable. However, he also won the audience by not saying a word, apart from in the golf scene and all that. But he was deemed a bit, I suppose, in the same caliber as Jaws in a way. That the audience like him, but they know he's a villain. They're not rooting for him, but it's not like, oh, he's a bad guy, go away, and all that. Like some of the other villains we encounter in other movies, he's unlikable. You want to see more of him because you know he's quite intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just like, again, it's one of those things that they discover in this movie that actually they can do this moving forward, in that he's a bad guy, but the audience gravitates to him. Why does the audience gravitate to him? Because he's an interesting character. You know, he cuts a fun silhouette on screen, and he poses a challenge to Bond whilst, you know, not, you know, taking up a great deal of plot.
Yeah.
And they
all want to see that, don't they?
Can't they?
we like to see our heroes challenged. A bit like, I mean, you mentioned Indiana Jones, for example. You want to have a good henchman battle where you fear that, it's a movie, they're going to win, but the reality is you want to see them work for their money, essentially, and how they're going to get out of it.
And from a plot standpoint, it's really good to have that, like, that one battle before the final. We all know that Bond and the main villain are going to face off, but before they do that, we can have the slightly smaller fight, or maybe more elaborate fight, but the slightly less stakes fight.
Have you noticed how there was little snippets built in as well? So the bits that stood out for me, one, it was actually at the golf club. So number one, where he squashes the golf ball effortlessly into dust, and you're thinking, my God, that's a big hand of flour he's got there right now.
Do you think anyone in real life could do that? Because, I mean, I've held a golf ball. I
don't think it comes down to strength, does it? It's just absolutely rock solid.
Yeah, it is. It is rock solid, yeah.
So no matter how much he grips something, but that was phenomenal, but he just sprinkles it like that. Yeah. And the second thing was in the same scene is where he reminds Bond of why Goldfinger as an entity is so ruthless, and he throws the hat at the statue,
Yeah, the hat of the statue is so cool. I love when it takes the head of the statue off. It reminds me of, it's like something that Tim Burton did later on in Batman Returns with Catwoman on the
penguin or something.
Yeah. It's very cool.
He was definitely, I mean, I think if we ever do a henchman run, he's going to be in my top 5, honestly. So
easy
easy to see him in that.
And what do you think of, so as main villains go, I think if you take Blofeld as out of the equation and think of like one movie villains, I don't think there is a better one movie villain than Auric Goldfinger in some respects. How do you feel about this guy?
Right, now it's a bit of a mixed opinion because now we were watching this last night, and me and my wife had a bit of a tete-a-tete about the villain, and I told her, but if you guys don't know, that obviously Goldfinger was such an amazing villain. The guy that played him, Gert Frobe, was a great portrayal on screen. However, if you don't know, his voice wasn't his voice.
Nope.
It was a dubbed German voice.
As we've said in previous reviews, quite commonplace in early Bond movies as well.
Oh, yeah. And you know what, though? The difference with this one, though, is I don't think it's noticeable. I think it's actually very, very good lip syncing.
Oh, yeah. Until I was told, or until I read that it was a dub, I hadn't noticed that it was a dub.
Yeah. And it's only then when you know it, and you look back at little moments where you go, oh, that slipped. But you wouldn't know. Like, I mean, there's people like, let's be honest, like Tatiana Romana, for example. So you can tell there's a little bit of sliding on the voice and all that. It's not quite ideal. This one is absolutely nailed.
It really is.
But he's, despite the guy not actually saying a word, I think his intimidation is so evident. He's the... he's the sort of the billionaire, ingenious, and obviously his plot was not to take over the world. His plot was to stabilize world economy, which I hate to say it is frighteningly true with the world that we're in right now.
Yeah, isn't it just? Isn't it just what Auric Goldfinger should have done? He's run for president.
Now, how far to the line do we go, Chris, on this? That's the thing.
Let's not get into the political realm, shall we?
But it was very confusing to me when I realised how true to normal life this movie could be right now. Obviously, it's slightly more madman because he wants to, raid Fort Knox and destabilise the economy's goal to boost his own and all that. And that, to me, despite being quite, I don't know, an exaggerated plot, has some really grounded levels to why he does it.
100%. Yeah, it really does. He's one of those villains that you can sympathise with the motives for. And the second act of the film itself is quite slow. You do get to learn about what his goals and his motives are through like the the time that he spends with Goldfinger at his like resort and on the golf course, and there's a lot of interaction between the two main characters.
Yeah, I think the really shocking thing about him is the fact that Goldfinger appears as somebody that's quite ruthless, but he actually demonstrates some heart, because he has a lot of concern for his staff. I mean, Pussy Galore, for example, he held her in very high esteem, but there's nothing creepy or sexual there. They are literally just, I don't know, like comrades in arms. She's got something, an asset that he needs to make his job work. Yeah. So he used the flying circus and respects how good she is as a pilot.
He's not a mustache twirling villain, is he? He's not a madman. He is just, he is just a bad guy. His motives are, underhanded and devious, and he's out for himself. But he's a rounded character that you can fully understand.
And that scene we see in there, where he's like, "Oh, the entire gold supply," and all that. It's like the fact that he had spent so much money putting that map up on the screen so we can point at it. It's absolutely. Sort of wow from a production point of view, but two, how much money has this guy actually got?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Does he need any more?
No.
Come on.
And then he made a scale map. A scale model, didn't he? I mean, that's. I wonder how much effort he went to some, base building, intricate building designer, and went, by the way, can you make me an image of Fort Knox and show me where all the local army bases are?
I think he's got a guy on. I think it's a guy permanently in his staff that just makes scale models for him. I really do.
Or what about if it's just this man called Jeff that lives near his house, and he just goes, "Jeff, can you do me a favour?"
Maybe he makes doll houses, and Goldfinger's like, "I got a job for you."
Oh, I know the man. Jeff's the man.
Jeff.
So
it's great. Can I have it coming out of a table as well, please?
Yeah. Can you make it on the opposite side of the table so it doesn't fall off when it turns over?
Yeah, please.
I mean, that's something my wife was laughing at. She went, "Oh, how elaborate it is." However, such a charm of the 60s movies. You won't see that in a new movie now. It just doesn't happen.
No, it'd be on some screen or something. It'd be a holographic projection or something like that, if anything at all. It
makes you feel a bit gooey when you watch that sort of thing, because it just feels cool. Yeah. And even like the gadgets, like that. Obviously, that's one thing they have, but like where I'm not being funny, but the bit at the beginning where he's playing on Miami Beach for the cards, and he's obviously cheating with Jill watching him, right?
Yep.
How did the guy playing him not see that massive earpiece sticking out?
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
With a cable like I've got now, dringling down.
But
and
I think that's a really good opportunity to talk about the gadgets, or to talk more specifically about Q Branch, because this was the first movie where we got a proper look at Q Branch and Desmond Llewellyn actually as Q.
And how good he is as well.
And he is. And it straight away in Q Branch, you've got the comic sort of back and forth, the disdain that Bond has for the gadgets, the joking, and how, at least at first, Q can't take a joke and doesn't like the way that Bond belittles Q Branch. And obviously that's something that changes over time as they become, quite familiar and friendly and whatnot. But in this movie, it really does set up that whole bunker feel to Q Branch.
His tolerance for Bond at this point is it's quite low, isn't it?
So low. Agreed.
However, he does gift us the wonderful DB5, doesn't he? We get our first real actual Bond car, not Bond car chase. We've discussed that, but the first definitive car with gadgets on there. I mean, like we see there, the ejector seat that's happening on screen right now. Mm-hmm. We had obviously forward-firing machine guns. There was an oil slick, smoke screen, rear, mounted screen to protect from the back. What I couldn't understand though, Chris, maybe I've missed something, is why did Q put the mounted screen at the back and made claim that all the windows were bulletproof anyway?
Yeah, I know. I never understood that. That's a really good point.
It's good from an armour point of view. He's doing his job. He's efficient. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But isn't that a bit of a waste on British taxpayers' money?
I think he'd done that first, and then they were like, "We could just fit bulletproof glass," and he's like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're leaving
He's
it
like-
in."
Q just goes into his office at the end of the day and just goes, no.
Why? Make sure that the back window isn't bulletproof, please, because then he
Yeah.
needs to use it.
Yeah, but I mean, that being said, I mean, that is a car that we've probably seen since Goldfinger in probably a good half a dozen movies ever since. And I don't think you could put your finger on one other car that's made that many appearances in the Bond series like that.
Oh no. Again, it's another thing you can point out to say this is iconic Bond. It's the most iconic Bond car.
It is, and it's. I hate to say the wrong word because we are trying to be a
Where's that laser coming from?
Show.
Jesus.
But looks for it. Goldfinger doesn't know either. There it is. That car, forgive my French, is absolute pornography. It is beautiful. The way it's sculpted. I mean,
it's
was
gorgeous
beautiful then, but it's absolutely iconic now.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there was only like a handful of them made in production. They weren't a massive production line.
Yeah, no, and I think from what I heard, the production team had to pay to use the car in the movie. But then after this movie, they definitely didn't have to pay for them anymore.
He did, and then I think they. I didn't realise this as well. Now, one thing that's quite interesting about the Bond franchise is the level of investment they get that's outside of their budget levels. I mean, the amount of brands that pay to have their brands, i.e. Aston Martin, Amiga, the watches, stuff like that. Even Wolfer, to have that as Bond's gun. The amount of money they pay to have that on screen is absolutely ludicrous. But you think about it, these are brands that have stood the test of time.
They are. Did they stand the test of time because of Bond?
You can make an argument that it's there. I mean, let's be honest, Aston
more
is
symbiotic
definitively
than
Bond.
they care to admit.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when I think of an Aston Martin, it's hard not to think of James Bond. And they know that. They know that.
It's intrinsic to their brand, like James Bond. It really is. There's no getting away from it.
Same as like if you watch another movie or you play a game, for example, and there just happens to be a Wolfer PPK. You're not saying the Bond that gun's name in your head while you're playing it. You're going, "That's a Bond's gun. That's Bond's gun."
Yeah.
Well, not really. So I think there's something quite classic about the gadgets in this movie, but like there were some pretty ludicrous ones, like the duck on his head, for example, the headset. Yeah. There was the ear set in Goldfinger's ear and all that. That was quite ridiculous. But other bits like, for example, the gas canisters, the Delta 9 and all that. Yeah. They were beautifully sculpted and obviously really gold as well. Mm-hmm. Somebody realised that that was the smallest thing in the world, but he did say that this is the most beautiful toxin nerve gas ever. I think he was referring more to the fact it was just made out of gold.
I think it probably was. He did have that obsession, didn't he? And I even think they could have played on his obsession with gold a little bit more.
Absolutely.
In the movie.
I think that's something that we, is a bit of a tragedy with some Bond villains. You never see naturally, you're not going to see an origin. You're not going to see a flashback to when they're a kid. That isn't going to happen. However, it does make the mind wonder what turns somebody from probably a very sane individual into what we're seeing now.
Do you remember in Casino Royale how they kept pointing at that guy in the country club as potentially being a younger Goldfinger? Do you remember the guy that throws him the keys to his Range Rover or whatever?
No. Really? I've not heard that one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's like an official canon thing, but like I can't remember. There was something about his car as well. It wasn't. I don't know if it was a gold Range Rover or whatever, but I'm struggling to remember now. And when we watch the Casino Royale review, I'm sure we'll be able to pick up on it. But
that's such a good point. I've never actually thought of that, but it was a gold Range. Yeah, it was a gold Range Rover. I'm sure it was the one he crashed.
And he even got like I don't know. I'm probably making it up now, but I remember him looking like Goldfinger to a certain extent.
Do you know what other part of this movie has in common with Casino Royale quite nicely as well?
What's that?
Linked to the car is, as far as I can remember, apart from Casino Royale, this is the only movie where Bond crashes his car.
Is it? Oh, I like that. I mean, you might well be right. I'm gonna have to pay attention to all the other reviews now.
You know,
So
obviously the segment I'm referring to.
He's never crashed his car.
Yeah, I believe this. Yeah, is that bit where he was sort of going through the back alleys of his of the base at night, and there's the dead end, and he shoots the gun at what's obviously just a mirrored wall, and then it makes him realise either there's a car coming towards him to mislead him, and it's not, and he crashes into the wall. I can't think of enough time that's happened.
I'm thinking, Tomorrow Never Dies, the 7 Series Beamer does go through a multi-story car park into a Hertz garage.
but was that
he's not in it?
Or was that intentional?
Yeah, it was intentional. You're right. He wasn't in it at the time, and he was controlling it. So, I think that was intentional.
It's quite interesting that that's the way. They create, I suppose, a flawed Bond. Still, that's still evident.
Absolutely.
In the early parts of making movies, and that's something that's quite charming to see. The one thing I didn't like in this movie, though, Chris, despite being some amazing moments, the bit I didn't like was the changing of actor of Felix Leiter.
Yeah, and you're right. It's one of those where it kind of happens quite a lot in the early movies. They're not quite. Yeah. It doesn't feel like they're as worried about continuity as they are, getting into the 80s and 90s. But it is a shame because I liked the first Felix. I mean, I like all of the Felix Leiters that we get.
I actually liked, to me, Jack Lord, I think in Doctor No was a brilliant Felix. He actually had some natural chemistry with Connery that they played off quite nicely. And I like that. But
do you know the reason why he was changed? Or
I don't actually know.
No, I don't either.
No. But the guy who replaced him, obviously in this movie, was a guy called Seth Linder, who, don't get me wrong, was a very, very classic American, West American type guy. You'd imagine that, the accent, the way he goes about things, he plays a great role. But I just think that Jack Lord did it better.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. There's got to be an episode somewhere about ranking our best Felix Leiters now.
More Felix Leiters than Bonds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. So
we'll have to bring Jeffrey White in there at some point.
Definitely. Jeffrey Wright's got to be up there.
Yeah. Can I lead you on to the subject on, because we had a bit of a checklist onto Honor Blackman.
Yeah, that's where I was going to try and steer us to as well.
Go on, Chris. Give me a grounding. What you got?
So, I mean, Honor Blackman, actually, you kind of forget how late into the movie Pussy Galore turns up. But Pussy Galore, what a name, first of all. And what a great character. Slightly different character than the novels. So if anyone who's watching hasn't read the novel, slightly different character, maybe a little bit more problematic. She was gay in the book, and Bond turns her straight in the book.
Oh, what a lad.
Doesn't happen in the movie, but yeah, amazing. But I think Honor Blackman is fantastic as Pussy Galore, puts in a great shift. Bond's first sort of tough Bond girl, definitely not the damsel in distress, can hold her own, and is evil at least, or at least, at first. And it's archetypal, really. You see that kind of Bond girl a lot moving forward. The anti-hero, the one whose morals are grey, and Bond sort of helps, gets help from along the way. So I love her in this film, and you can see why she's always up there on the lists of the best Bond girls.
There is a slightly controversial moment. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this one in Goldfinger, with their sequence in the barn. And
yeah.
I think whilst nowadays you kind of look at that and go, ooh, should he have done that? Should that be all right? Should that be on screen? Because I don't think we'd see that in not just a Bond movie now, a movie now. That's the thing.
And I think we've said before that Bond is a sort of a time capsule, isn't it? It's a product of its time. But I almost wonder whether we need to get to a point where we stop apologizing for how these movies play out. Maybe that's not popular, but it's like, some of them are going to be like that. But that's the character. That's how the character was, and that's how the story played out.
Yeah, I mean, Fleming wrote Bond with two points in mind. It was one, to be the man that everybody wants to be, every man wants to be, and the man that every woman wants to be with. That was his fantasy, I suppose you could say, in the character of the story. So the reality is, White's sometimes a little bit too like, oh, James and all that, but that's what he wanted. He wanted women oozing after him, and just the man that everybody could not reach that peak of level. That's what I believe.
He was the man that every woman wanted to be open hand slapped in the face from.
The fact is, as well, like you said, Pussy Galore. So the couple of things she had. You mentioned she was a feisty one. She was great. She could fly. She could clearly do judo. She gives Bond a hammer a couple of times, didn't she? I think twice in the movie. Yeah. And to think she's taking on a 00, who is essentially the elite of the British Secret Service. I think that's damn respectful to her. But you're right, she mellows. She doesn't necessarily fall for his charms, but I think she sort of has the error of her ways seen that this is not the way to go around this goal. I
also think she sees the social spirit. There are a lot of similarities. I think she sees somebody on her level.
Yeah, and she's clearly got a conscience. That's one thing I really liked about Pussy Galore.
Yeah, she has.
From there. But you're right, the name. I'm not sure what Ian Fleming was thinking of when he wrote that, but maybe he was having one too many vodka martinis at the GoldenEye Ranch one night and just went, "Oh, what a name!
Some of the names are amazing, aren't they?
They are. But you know what? You don't cringe at it. It's
no.
They are stapled names, aren't they? That's the thing. And one thing that you notice with Bond that goes through the years is those trends don't stop. There's development. Things get a little bit more modern, attitudes change, but certain bits don't stop. I mean, if you think about, Pussy Galore in 1964, then you've got Christmas Jones in 1999. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't change. It's 30 odd years apart. And I think that's something I'm so proud about being a Bond fan, Chris, is seeing that evolution and living with a franchise that you get older with and you can introduce to your family, to your kids, to your grandkids, to keep that generation moving forward. That is the beauty of having a series that runs as long.
Oh, that's really well said, I think. I completely agree with that sentiment. And I think that's probably why we react so nervously to the Amazon takeover, because it kind of it shows a potential shift in Bond, and because it's something that we've grown up with and something that we've seen develop as we've developed, and the sensibilities change in the films as we grow up. It's something that's really close to your heart, and I think that's probably why when I went back to this film, I was maybe a little bit shocked at how much I love it, because it was just one of those Bond films I tried not to go back to so much, because it's the Bond film, or one of the Bond films you watched all the time as a kid because it was such a great film. Probably
one of the most nostalgic in the entire series, I think.
I sat there with so much nostalgia that I didn't feel when watching Dr. No and From Russia with Love. It was like watching your favourite TV episode of a show when you were a kid.
There was warmth in the heart. I know that might sound a little bit too over the top, but genuinely, there was something about watching that movie that felt different to me. And I'm really enjoying this concept of watching these movies with a different angle and sharing these views with them. Like, I mean, I've seen each one a billion times, but I'm watching it again with a totally different aspect.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think I noticed when I watched the a little recap of our From Russia with Love video, which, by the way, go back and check it out on the channel. We had a ball doing that.
Yeah, we did.
But at the end of it, I think it was mentioned we're so excited to do Goldfinger, and I think that really is. I hope that love is coming out to you guys right now, and you can see that.
Yeah, it was so good to have a reason to go back and watch Goldfinger, and maybe I've overplayed that a little bit. I don't dislike the film. I've always loved Goldfinger, but I think that's why I've always resisted going back to watch Goldfinger, because it just feels like something I've overplayed a little bit too much, like my favorite records,
It completely is. If you had to give this movie a rating, like a 10 rating, I know we haven't done these in the past 2 movies, but it'd be good to sort of start these.
Have we not? I thought we had done this in the past.
I think From Russia with Love missed it, if I'm being honest. Dr. No probably did.
Oh, I thought I'd give it a 10. Okay.
Do you want to give it a 10? Oh, mate,
I gave From Russia with Love a 10.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I don't. It's not that I'm putting it in front of another movie, behind another movie. Just as a movie, I think a solid 9, 10 out of 10, so around there is absolutely bang on. To be honest, what would your reasoning be? Very, very short sentence. Why you've put this movie in your rating?
So right, I'll go back and I'll reiterate. I gave From Russia with Love a 10. I haven't given this movie a rating yet. I'm sure we definitely did that. We'll have to go back and have a look. But I think this movie surprised me a little bit because I didn't expect it to be as high as it was. This is between a 9 and a 10 for me. I don't think it's the perfect Bond movie, but I give it a solid 9 to 9.5 out of 10. And the reason for that is everything we've said. Everything's iconic. There's nothing bad about this movie. It's the best car, the best Bond girl, the best villain, the best quotes, which we haven't even talked about. The best suits, the best gadgets, everything, the best Bond themes. Everything about this movie is top notch.
I can't argue with one point you've just said there. Not one. The reality is that when Connery says very early on in the movie, shocking, absolutely shocking, how right he is, because there is nothing that you can pull up on Goldfinger. It's pacing, it's villain, his charismatic approach to the character, the Bond girls, the locations, the side characters. There is nothing where I look at this movie and go, oh God, can you just end a bit early? And stuff like that. You're enjoying the ride. So, I mean, I would go as far to give Goldfinger definitely a 9.5 out of 10. There's maybe a smidgen here, which might be the fact that I'd rather have Jack Lord rather than the other gentleman. Set Linda in there is lighter, but that's a minor gripe. It's not to say the movie's bad in any way. It's not. It's amazing.
I think we've not even touched upon. I think we are pacing as well out. We've not even touched upon like the laser beam table scene. We've not touched upon poor Jill Masterson being painted gold. We've not talked about the fight with Oddjob. How bonkers that Fort Knox even looks with just random gold bars sitting behind metal bars. It's so random, and it's definitely not how Fort Knox looks in real life, but it's just all so cool.
Interesting you say that, because apparently one of the cliches here was the segment where Bond fights Oddjob in Fort Knox. Is apparently, I've read a article earlier on, and it was said that it was remarkably accurate to Fort Knox inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't get
really
that.
Surprised by that. That it's just there's just gold bars sitting everywhere with just metal bars in front of them. It reminded me of like a gold stash in the Old West. But yeah, and just America as a setting, clearly trying to break the American market. I love that we're going big, we're setting it in America. There's nowhere better than Fort Knox to do this, and they really do. Like,
is there anywhere more American,
amazing.
Chris? Is there anywhere more American?
No, I mean, than America? No, definitely not.
No, but yeah, I think the table scene, like you said, probably one of the most iconic, torture scenes, if you want to call it that.
The most iconic quote as well. Do you think?
Oh,
do you think that's the most iconic Bond quote other than James Bond?
I think, it's been used in so many spoofs, isn't it, in the past, in certain ways, or even just said with a charismatic, quip at a party, something, oh, you expect me to die, and all that lot, No, I totally agree. And the fact that who is it that does Goldfinger's actual voice? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure I can look it up, but
I wonder if he's got some royalties to that movie.
He must do. He must do.
Say that line and not get paid for it when he can deliver it.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. I mean, I use that so often in the really just moments where you shouldn't. But I was just trying to see. Okay, so just so that we can point him out, Ulrich Goldfinger's voice is Michael Collins.
Oh, and I'm assuming he wasn't like a German by the sound of his voice.
Doesn't sound like it, but
portrayed that way.
it's clearly. I have heard like Gert Frobe's original voice being used, and I don't think there's much difference, to be honest. I'm quite surprised that they went the route of dubbing him in the first place.
I suppose that's one of those magical mystery of production queries that we're never going to really know the answer to. We can only speculate and try and put some light to the darkness and the situation, really. But one of those things. The reality is that when you look at the legacy that Goldfinger leads out, a lot of things you're going to see here again. We mentioned the DB5.
Yep.
We mentioned we get the proper Q branch. We get the PPK back in albeit quite early on. But these are little traits.
We get Shirley Bassey back again.
We do. What was it? Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever.
Diamonds Are Forever, and this.
Just those three, wasn't it? And Goldfinger, of
three.
course. Wow.
But
now you've got a question, right? There's no other artist that's done a repeat song in the Bond history, is there? No one else.
No, there isn't. And there's such a there's the reason she's brought back is because she's so good. That still, they are still the best Bond themes for me.
The title sequence with that one, though, I love how it was just projections onto
it is
women painted gold
and stuff. Yeah,
that was beautiful.
It really
no
was.
CGI. They can't do CGI. They can't do green screens or not. It was just a dark rib. But I couldn't work out, Chris. Maybe somebody else can put a bit of light on it. Is how the light was only shining on the girls. It never created a backdrop anywhere else.
Yeah, no. I'm not sure. There must be a camera trick for that.
Mate, that is Maurice Binder at his absolute best, I think. Simple, but so essential. And like you said, from Russia with Love, it started the approach with the girls dancing. That carries on into Goldfinger. And, it's just a great idea to actually now, you don't just get a Bond movie and all the bits that come with it. You get a Bond song that comes with each movie. That's part of the adventure. And I'll tell you now, all of us Bond fans, surely, tell us what your favourite song is in the comments if you want. But the reality is, when you watch a movie, a Bond movie, those are the titles that you don't skip.
Of course they're not. No, absolutely. It is part of the film. It's not like it's not an interlude. It's not just something that they had to put in there. They could just skip the song if they wanted, but the song is part of the film. Even the bad ones are part of the film.
Part of the charm. Part of the charm and all that, really. But no, I think that brings Goldfinger to a close, Chris, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it does. So we're saying 9.5 out of 10 for Goldfinger, right?
Yeah. What does everybody think of their ratings? Are we right at 9.5? Are we being too generous? Are we being too crude? What would you rate Goldfinger? Let us know in your comments. Drop it down below, and we'll use it in our future videos and let you know what we've got when we rate the other Bond movies. Obviously, we're going to carry on a cinematic rollout a little bit later this year. We'll be bringing out our review on Thunderball. So it'd be interesting to see how we get on with 1965. We'll also be going back into our gaming genre soon, carrying on with 007 Legends, which is my favourite one, License to Kill, Chris.
Can I maybe they can tell us in the comments, but can I make a suggestion as well? With Thunderball, do you think we should watch Never Say Never Again as well? Because we're only watching the official Bond movies, but with Never Say Never Again, it is a Thunderball remake.
It is Thunderball, isn't it? It is.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to. It might, maybe that is too much, but perhaps it's worth us commenting a little bit on Never Say Never Again during the Thunderball review. Maybe
we should do it as the synergy that's sort of represented, because I agree, there's a lot of recycled content in Never Say Never Again that was in Thunderball. No way in hell would I ever put Never Say Never Again above Thunderball, though. I won't lie. That's just not going to happen. But I think we can use some of those parts and compare it. Absolutely.
Thanks.
You have permission, sir. No. anything that you would like to plug, Chris, before we say goodbye to the guys?
All I really want to plug is the Bondcast, to be honest. Please drop onto the Facebook page, give us a like, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's amazingly helpful to us. We are growing, we are new, but anything we can do to get our podcast out there, we're trying, and we're just blown away by the support that we've had so far. But that's it from me, really. You can find me at Geek Figure Fan on Instagram and YouTube.
Wow. I mean, Chris, I mean, where do I go with that? Honestly, the reality is we are overwhelmed by every single one of you that's shown some, interaction with our channel. You know, you've commented, you've liked, you've subscribed, you've followed our pictures, our polls. I don't think we could have pictured this actually happening when we started making the Ultimate Bondcast. And we're not making it for us. It's not some vanity project. We're making it to give you guys great content where you can engage with us and meet like-minded people that enjoy the same subject. So you don't have to feel like anywhere you're isolated. There's a Bond nerd, because you know what? There's millions of us out there. And that's something that I'm very proud of. As Chris said, jump on our page, drop us a like on our Facebook page. Press subscribe while you're on the channel right now, watching our video. It is incredibly helpful and means the absolute world to us. But we will absolutely see you on the next installment of the Bondcast.
The Ultimate Bondcast.